goal when dealing with equations is to get my variable term alone. So here's what I want you to do on some of these that we're doing. My first goal is to get what I have boxed in there by itself. So let me bump this up a little so you can see them a little better. So whatever I have to do to get what's not in the box out of there is priority number one, no matter what type of equation it looks like. Whether I see something with a fraction or a negative or anything else, that's got to be what I do first. So for instance, we're always going to be doing opposites on these. So I see in letter P here, my dilemma seems to be I have a plus 8 hanging out there that's causing a problem. How do I get rid of the plus 8? Minus 8. And whatever I do to one side of my equation, I have to do to both. So I minus the 8 from both sides. Okay, mission 1 accomplished. I've got my 3n by itself. Okay, and how'd you get that? That's right. Dividing by 3, since I'm multiplying, is the opposite. And I get my solution, and n is 4. That's what we're working with here. So if you move over to C then, first goal, whatever's not in the box has got to get out of there. I need you alone. How do I get rid of that plus 6? Minus the 6. Okay? Now, here's the part that sometimes will get people. What's my last step to get that negative 5 out of there? Okay? Here, it's divided by... Right now, we're in the middle of a lesson. Yes. Right now, we're going to keep rolling here. We're dividing by negative 5. So we're back. So a minus the 7. And I have a feeling I know what might have happened to you here. Okay, so 11 minus 7 is 4. So here's my question. Looks like I'm dividing x by 2. What's the opposite of dividing something by 2? Timesing it. So here's what happens here. When I times it, this 2 on the left's whole job is just to cancel that other 2 out. There won't be anything left except the x that's up top. And then what's 4 times 2? 8. So I have a feeling what might have happened to you somewhere on there is maybe when you were doing the subtract here, maybe this was off a little, or maybe the multiplying turned into a divide somehow for you. Yeah, we're absolutely going to do more like that. Which one? W. Okay, yep, we can come back to W. And you got a decimal for I. Okay, and we'll come back to, what did you do for your first step in I? Okay, but remember, the critical thing with these is I'm always doing an opposite. That's the only way I can get rid of it. So what's the opposite of minusing 2? That's going to be it, okay? Now W, okay, opposite of adding we figured out is subtracting. Here's where you've got to be careful though. I've got to remember to keep that negative with my 4y. Yeah, it's one of those things where you've really got to take your time and just kind of work through. Now again, if the whole positive negative thing gets to you, so like here you're like 4 minus 16 and the first thing that comes to your head is like positive 12 or something like that. Go to the calculator if you have to. But 4 minus 16, okay? But remember, my first step is I've got to get what I've got in this box by itself on this side. I'm going to divide it. But here, that plus 16 that's outside of my box, that's my first priority. So I'm going to minus the 16 because I want this out of here. Once I get what's in the box by itself, now what am I doing? I'm multiplying this by 4. Well, by negative 4. Y, this is negative 4 times y. This is. If I've got negative 4 times y, the opposite of multiplying by 4 is to divide. On all of these, I'm doing opposites. So my first step in these two-step equations is always going to be to add or subtract. Why did I put negative 4 under? Because what am I multiplying y by here? I'm multiplying by negative 4. That's what's connected to my y. So if I'm multiplying by negative 4 here, then I'm dividing by negative 4. Okay. Yeah, okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're wondering why I'm not doing positive then. Okay. Let's pause this for just a second here. I'm going to grab it with equations. It's just going to be understanding the idea of things being opposites. So I'll keep this handy because I'm going to come back to it as we're doing some of these. But let me get this back up for a minute. So for instance, let's do letter A here. Let's chat on A. I want to get what's in the box by itself. So right now, what am I doing? I'm minusing 23 from it. What's that? Right. So since right now I'm trying to get this minus 23 out of here, I'm going to add 23. Because by doing the opposite, so I've got negative 8t, and then somebody help me out. Negative 15 plus 23. Positive 8. Okay? So then, remember, we're doing opposites here. Right now, I'm multiplying t by negative 8. What's the opposite of multiplying? Divide by that same number. But I want to see that step because whatever I do to this side, I have to do to this side. And I have a feeling if some of you don't put this step and write it in here, you'll just think, oh, t is 8 because I canceled that side out. Because I've got to do 8 divided by negative 8, which is negative 1. I've got to get that last step in there to get my answer. Sure. Okay. So if we do j, same thing. Wherever my variable is, we're going to box that in first. How do I get rid of that minus 1? Okay, plus 1. So I've still got the k over 9, and 10 plus 1 is 11. But again, this is about opposites. I'm dividing k by 9. What's the opposite of dividing by 9? Multiplying. And you're right. The 9s cancel over here, just leave me with k, and 11 times 9 is 99. Okay? Yeah, and I do. I appreciate your guys' patience in keeping asking questions and keep talking to me. I like this. I like the fact that we're actually starting to get there with some of them. Okay, I can't see what letter that is. V. Okay. Swing over to V here. We're doing a few extras, but I'm good with this. We're going to spend some time here. First thing, whatever's outside the box has got to go. How do I say adios to positive 5 or plus 5? Okay, we're going to minus 5. So far, so good. Now, keep thinking opposites. Okay. I did 14 and then I minus 5. Since this was plus 5, the opposite was a minus 5 from each side. Yeah, that first step typically with these is always going to be add or subtract more times than not. Because here, when I look at my... Nope, no divide here, because to divide I'd have to be multiplying this by 5. That's a plus 5. So the opposite of plusing 5 to something is to subtract it. There's a difference between... Let me put something up here for a second. Let's see if this helps. There's a difference between if I see x plus 5 or 5x. If I want to get rid of the 5 here, I have to subtract it to cancel it. But if it's multiplying, if I don't see a plus or minus between them, then you have to divide. Because here, when I see the plus 5, when the plus or minus is right in front of the number, that's when I have to add or subtract, depending on if this is plus or minus. It's when that number is directly attached to my variable, that's the only time I'm going to divide. Because you see, there's no plus or minus in between my t or my variable there. So here I've got to minus it, since that plus is there. I do the minus and their opposites and cancel. But then here, m is divided by negative 4.
So I can't just say negative 4 divided by 5. It's harder than that.
Run that by me one more time.
First thing, m multiplied by 4.
Yeah.
I can't just say negative 4 divided by 5.
No, because if I did negative 4 divided by 9 or 9 divided by negative 4, I'd get a very little decimal number. It's not the same. It is. It's going to be the same on these. So, for instance, the same deal working here on the next one. How do I get the minus 3 out of here? Plus 3. So that leaves me with n divided by 8. Negative 11 plus 3 is negative 8. Since now that I have the n term alone, since I'm dividing it by 8, what's the opposite so I can get it alone? The opposite of dividing by 8. Multiply. And then that's negative 64. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. We're almost there. Letter B is up next. So, what do I have to do first for letter B? Minus the 25. Because I see the plus, I got a minus. So negative 35 minus 25. Think about money. I owe my friend 35 bucks. I borrow 25 more. Now I owe him 60. What's my last step going to be in B? Well, now wait a minute. I'm multiplying 12 by y. Would you agree with me there? Okay, so since I'm multiplying by 12, what's the opposite? Divide. So negative 60 divided by 12. You're not multiplying. Negative 60 divided by 12. Yes, ma'am. The multiply to get there? Okay, well good. We got one more of them anyway. So E, how do I get rid of the minus 8? I add it, okay? Yes. Yes, okay? Here, since I'm dividing by 10, well, since, yeah, A over 10, yes, A divided by 10, but you're right. No, the steps you said is right. We're going to multiply by 10, because that'll cancel the 10 out. So now, there's one more question I have. Notice I still have a negative here. This is like a negative 1 with my A. Since I'm multiplying by negative 1, what's the opposite? We got one extra step in here. Okay. I've got to divide by negative 1, because again, I'm multiplying here. I'm not subtracting. Yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. Yes. All right. So then if we look at U, the product of a number and 9, what's a product? Times. So the product of a number and 9 increased by 4 is 58. So okay, we've made this equation. Now we've got to solve the equation, and that's what that blank for number at the bottom is. How do we get there? How do we get there? Okay, we got to subtract the 4. Once to each side, left U. And there, since you got the right answer, what's the last step? And then we divide, because we're multiplying the opposite to divide.
I didn't figure it out.
You just kind of worked with the numbers and knew it? It's just 6. 50. That's true. Okay, originally, now he's doing it a different way. Originally, Maddie, we did 58 and then we minus the 4, and that's where that came from. Uh-oh, watch the heat. Huh. That's weird. Because the product of a number and 9, product is times. So that's where this comes from. Then it says increase by 4. So I was just creating the equation from there. Yes. Yes. Okay? So just a couple, yes. Let me see him. I might be able to handle this. Okay, sure. All right, so over to the back, there's one more thing that can get tossed in at us here. What happens if oops, let me move down here, I'm not even on the screen. What happens if I have more than one x there? Oh gosh, I'm whining on my own video now. Okay. So, we have to combine like terms if that happens. So for instance, if I have 7 x's and I have 4 more, how many do I have? 11. Okay, so 11x is 33. And what's my last step since I'm multiplying x by 11? Divide by 11. So what's 33 divided by 11? 3. And that just is going to keep going through these. So for instance, let's say I was doing number 5. Find the k's that are alike. What's negative 3 plus 7? 4k. Now it looks like the problems we've been doing. I need to get my k's by themselves. So how do I get that plus 1 out of there? Okay? Minus the 1 to get that plus 1 out of there. And what's my last step going to be? Divided by 4. And we're ready to go. Oh, we got to find one more. Let's see. I'll find a doozy. 8. Okay, let's do 8. Get the ends together. So I have 8 minus 3, or 8 and negative 3. What's that give me? 5 ends minus 15 equals negative 15. Okay, next goal, got to get 5n alone. Okay, since I'm minusing 15, you're absolutely right. I have to plus 15 to each side. So let's see here. What's negative 15 plus 15? 0. It will, because what's the opposite of multiplying by 5? Dividing by 5. And 0 divided by anything is going to be 0. Okay? Now again, your job is to try and work through the even ones. If you do the odds as well, I can throw some extra credit your way. Okay? Yes. Yes. That's good. Well, no, if you've done extra, you've got extra credit rolling on this. This is good. That's very good. Yes.